Yo, what's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another chill Marvel Snap video. My name is Sir Knight. I am from the Snap Squad, and I wanted to show you all the deck that I used to hit Infinite this season. It took me 4 days this season. It took me 126 games. But before I jump into this sweet information, I wanted to let you guys know that Snap Squad is having a Season Pass giveaway. We're giving away 3 Season Passes to start the month of July, and we're going to be doing that every single month. We're going to be giving away 3 Season Passes every month. All you need to do is subscribe and comment below. If you've already subscribed, then just comment below. And for every new video we make, you can comment below to increase your odds of being drawn for those season passes. We're a small YouTube channel, so you have a high probability of winning if you subscribe and comment below. Yeah, so now to get that out of the way, I want to jump into my season so far. So, as we all know, there was a bug this season with resets. I was at 105 at the reset, so I decreased down to 78 to start this season. Which is 5 ranks higher than where I guess I should have been. I should have been at 73. So I started at rank 78. And so it took me fewer games than it's ever taken me before to Infinite. It only took 126 games. And that's about 1 cube a game. I think it's like 0.9 cubes a game. Because every time you enter a new tier, you go up 3 ranks for free. So you have 7 ranks to go, but there's only 7 cubes in each rank, so it's like 49. It's like 50 cubes per tier. I started at 78, so that was an additional 14 cubes. So you're looking at about 112 cubes positive in order to get Infinite this season for myself. So it did not take nearly as many games as it has in the past. Usually it takes 250, anywhere from 250 to double that, 500, just depending on the meta and how volatile things are. But it took me 126 games this season. This is just the proof here. I just literally just hit, so I wanted to quickly make this video so everyone can see that yes, this is what happened. And I used basically one deck exclusively this entire month, and the deck that I used this month was essentially Doomwave. So Korg, Zabu, Jeff, Cosmo, Wave, Darkhawk. Jubilee, I was running Shang for a little while, then I switched to Jubilee, and I'll explain why. Then Rockslide, Iron Lad, Leader, Doom, and Chavez. If you do not have Jeff, then I have a budget version of Doomwave here that does not run Jeff, although it does run Iron Lad. So you could find a replacement from Iron Lad, maybe run White Queen, or maybe Jubilee, but I'd probably recommend running White Queen. But Iron Lad has lots of great hits in here, so he's really strong. But otherwise, this is pretty budget here. Just Iron Lad is the hardest card to get, and then Darkhawk is a Series 4, and Zabu is a Series 4. But if you just run anything with Wave, I think you're going to do really good. So here are the stats for my Doomwave deck. This, of course, doesn't have like every single game. For some reason, sometimes my untapped would not turn on when I was playing. Of course, this does not include mobile games, but this is largely what it was like for me. You can see the 70 games here. So, as we saw here, I played 126 games. So this clearly isn't capturing like every game that I played. But you can see the games that it did capture. I was 48 and 22 with about 68.6. So just under 70% win rate with almost over 100 games. It's pretty strong deck. And I had a average net gain of 0.97 cubes per game. And so let me explain some of these choices here. So Korg is obvious. You're just running the Darkhawk engine with Rockslide. I always really feel confident running the Darkhawk engine because primarily I think throwing rocks in your opponent's deck is like super disruptive, and you're probably getting free wins just because of that. So I really like running a deck that runs the Darkhawk engine only because I love throwing rocks in my opponent's deck. I feel it gives me an edge that most other decks do not have. That's just kind of like a free edge because you're not really losing too much by doing this. You could almost just run Rock Slide and Korg in decks and probably still see a great advantage from it without even having Darkhawk. That's how strong like throwing rocks in your opponent's deck is. So it's just kind of like a free edge. So I like doing that. Then of course Jeff is really great, especially in this meta, but like Professor X. He gets into hard to reach locations. He lets you avoid a Nebula's power upgrade one additional turn because you can play Jeff into the lane, then move Jeff out and play another card in the lane. He works really well in a lot of those situations where your lane may be locked up. Your opponent thinks they locked it up, but you still have Jeff there, so you can move Jeff out, giving you another slot in the lane. Just the utility that Jeff brings is incredible. You could almost really run, to be honest, Nightcrawler almost as effectively as Jeff. They do very similar things, and in some ways Nightcrawler might be better because he's half the mana and only one less power. So he's almost as much power as Jeff is, but he's half the mana. So this is a great option for like turn 4, and maybe you play like a 3 power, a 3 energy 4-drop plus Nightcrawler. Could be really strong. So if you don't have Jeff, consider maybe running Nightcrawler. It adds almost as much diversity and utility as Jeff does. The one area it doesn't really primarily is really just Professor X. Nightcrawler gets in all the hard reach locations as well. He protects location slots just like Jeff does. He does almost all the same things Jeff does, except he's half the cost and one less power. Another card to consider for Jeff, if you don't have Jeff, is you can consider running Mr. Fantastic, because he's kind of doing what Jeff does. Jeff lets you kind of choose where you want that 3 power to go. Mr. Fantastic is kind of just putting that power everywhere, right? So instead of like choosing where you want Jeff to go, Mr. Fantastic is kind of just putting the 2 power in any of the 3 lanes, right? So he costs 1 more, but he's doing a similar thing that Jeff does in a weird, odd way. So you might want to consider Mr. Fantastic if you don't have Jeff. So those are my thoughts on Jeff. I think you can easily run him with Nightcrawler or Mr. Fantastic. Either choice is really good. Mr. Fantastic is strong too because Doomwave does really well with getting some decent early game into Wave, because you want to have like 1 or 2 locations. You want to be ahead in a couple locations when you play Wave. The next card here is Cosmo, kind of self-explanatory, just a little bit of disruption, helps you a little bit in the Galactus matchup. Try to guess where your opponent's going to play Galactus. He's kind of just a really versatile, powerful card. You're never disappointed playing him. It's also really nice to play Cosmo and then Darkhawk into the Cosmo lane, which protects your Darkhawk from being shanged or destroyed in any way. So I like doing that a lot, dropping Cosmo and then just dropping the Darkhawk in that lane. You do have quite a few on reveals, so be aware of that. Don't drop your Doom in the Cosmo lane. Don't drop your Lad. Don't drop your Rock Slide. But otherwise, if you play around it, he's really great. Zabu's probably one of the most important engines here. That's the main reason why you run America Chavez, is just so you can draw Zabu more consistently, because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 drops. And so you have lots of high end here. So being able to cheat out a 4-drop really helps Wave. Like, that's the primary engine here, right? Like, you're trying to get some decent early turn power onto the board, so when you Wave on 5, you already have a couple lanes under control, and you just control where the outcomes occur on turn 6 after Wave. Wave, like I'm talking about right now, this card just wins games on its own. There are lots of games where you just play Wave and the opponent retreats, but this deck in particularly can really capitalize on Wave because you run Leader and Doom, and so usually you have one of these for turn 6 and you just decide which one works best in the situation. Even Chavez, if you're ahead enough in a couple other lanes, maybe you can steal the lane the opponent's ahead in, and you just can't lose. You just can't lose. It's really hard to lose. Be careful. There was one game that I lost that really shocked me, and I actually lost a game to Limbo because my opponent was playing Lockjaw and they played Electro into the Lockjaw, and Electro vanished, and so I forgot that Electro was giving them 1 additional mana per turn. So when I played Wave on turn 6, going into turn 7 for Limbo, the opponent actually had 8 mana, and they were actually able to play 2 cards. It blew me away for a minute, and then I recalled that that's right, he played Electro, and then I remembered why. So be aware of that. Wave can screw you in a Limbo deck if the opponent is playing Electro and they destroy the Electro or cycle the Electro, get rid of it some way. They can actually play 2 cards, and they did. They played Hulk and Infinite on me on turn 7. It was just blew me away. So I lost that game. But be aware of that combo. Now, why am I running Jubilee? Believe it or not, Jubilee has added like quite a bit utility in this deck for some of the reasons that I wasn't even expecting. So I was running Shang, but I was running into situations where I wasn't really running into a lot of decks where I could play Shang. You know, you play lots of high Evo, they kind of play low-powered cards, and they might drop Hulk on the last turn, but you're like blind, you're just dropping Shang blindly, hoping you hit their Hulk, or you're playing Doomwave decks that don't really play a lot of high-powered things, or you have Cosmo like me, and you're playing your Cosmo and your Darkhawks into the Cosmo lane, you can't Shang. So Shang, I was getting really annoyed because I'm only running 1, 2, 3, 4 drops, and you don't really like dropping Darkhawk on 3. You rather drop Rock Slide or Iron Lad on 3. But oftentimes, I'd have Shang, and that would be my 3-cost card. I'm like, that's completely worthless. I can't do anything on turn 3. So I decided to add in Jubilee, because Jubilee is doing something very similar to Iron Lad. You have a lot of great targets in this deck. Like, pretty much everything in here is awesome to pull with Jubilee. Like, pulling Darkhawk, pulling Wave, pulling Cosmo, pulling Jeff, pulling Zabu. All these cards are like really great. Iron Lad, Leader, Doom, or you're not going to ever pull Chavez. But, you know, you got lots of great cards to pull with Jubilee. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to try Jubilee to give myself another opportunity. And she actually worked really well. She worked really well into Death's Domain, or that the one location that destroys every card that's played there. She worked really great because she destroys, but then the card she bringing doesn't. Or the Altar, where when you destroy, every time you play a card there, it's destroyed and you gain 2 mana. She works really great there. So she was just really adding some really neat utility for certain unreachable locations that I wasn't really anticipating the kind of value she was bringing, right? Or she was helping me, you know, win lanes like the Raft, because she would bring 2 cards out, right? So she's, you know, filling a lane up quicker. She was just actually adding a lot of utility to location fluctuation and, you know, location variability and, you know, turbulence, that I was really happy with her. And I actually just kept playing with Jubilee in the deck all the way to Infinite, and I never really missed Shang at all. So I would play her when I had a good opportunity to, or I wouldn't play her when I didn't have a good opportunity to. So I actually really liked Jubilee, and that was probably that was one of the better additions that I made to this deck, was adding Jubilee. She didn't really add any downfall. She was actually really, really great. She's just really great location manipulation, like really interesting. Like Kajmatara, you do 2 Jubilees, you get to summon 2 cards. So, you know, when on reveals activate twice. So Jubilee was great. And then Rockslide, I've already talked about Rockslide. Iron Lad is very similar to Jubilee. It's just all these cards are great hits. Every one of them are excellent hits. You can do really cool manipulations actually with Jubilee and Iron Lad in a Limbo game. So I'll explain this as well. In Limbo, when you're going into turn 7, you have 2 cards left in your deck. So I had Darkhawk left in my deck, and I had like Rockslide, and the opponents still had like 4 or 5 cards left. And because I was throwing rocks in their deck with Korg and Rockslide. And so I knew that, you know, Darkhawk was still going to be like 8 or so power. And I had Jubilee in my hand, and I had Iron Lad in my hand. And so I knew that if I played Jubilee this turn, she'll pull Darkhawk, and if she doesn't, I could play Iron Lad, you know, or draw Darkhawk for the last turn, or I could play Iron Lad, copy what's ever in there, and then draw the last card and play it. So it's kind of like you get do some pretty cool manipulations with Jubilee into Iron Lad, which is pretty neat. And then of course, Doom just wins games, so many games because of Doom. I can't say enough good things about Doom. So Doom is excellent. Wave into Doom is still an incredible combo. And Wave just beats decks on her own. If you're not playing a Wave deck, then I think like you're doing it wrong. I just think you should be playing a deck that can run Wave, and you're gonna be so much happier in this meta. So that is the deck that I took to Infinite. If you guys enjoyed that, once again, please toss a like. Once again, go ahead and subscribe and comment to be entered into the Snap Squad monthly season pass giveaway. Remember, we give away 3 season passes, so there'll be 3 winners. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Talk to you later. Peace.